praises with thanksgiving in your heart.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Vision Plus here on Victory Network. I am Bonnie Libhart, and you know what we're going to learn today, or perhaps explore? That's how to have a blessed day every day. I know we're coming up to holiday season. We're just going over the month of October, and I think October sometimes is one of my most favorite months because the children are back in school. We're not quite to the Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays, and it's a time for reflection. We've just had that, and I think it stretches out for a few more days that we can have the fallout of blessings of just the quiet time before the holiday season comes on us. Don't you just love this time of the year? I know when we're coming in from Gunnersville and see the incredibly awesome beauty of that our Lord Jesus Christ gave us, of the colors, they're so vibrant this year. Haven't you noticed those? I'm just in ecstasy when I see them. And I just thought that just a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak to a group in a women's prison, and we went through a little exercise that I call How to Have a Blessed Day Every Day. And no matter what circumstances we're in, we can have a blessed day every day because the blessings come between here and here. It's not what's happening outside of us, but it's how we respond and react to those blessings. And then we went on to Texas and then back over to Atlanta. They lost our luggage coming back from San Antonio because the plane left us in Dallas, and we had to change to a different airline. And then I had to go on to Atlanta without my makeup. My husband was talking about, he said, but they didn't keep me up without my makeup. They sent me back home again. Oh, wonder what he meant by that. But anyway, when we have a blessed day every day, it's because of three specific things that I think. And you know, the Bible talks to us so much about asking, seeking, and knocking. But I think there's more in-depth things that can happen in our asking, seeking, and knocking than just asking, seeking, and knocking. There's other things in the ASK, and I thought perhaps you'd like to know those. The A, I really feel like the Lord has given me for people in pain, and most of us have pain of some sort. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that we've had a death in the family or gone bankrupt or we've had some kind of major thing, although to me any kind of divorce or disaster can be getting to work in your, for a woman, her hose can have a run in it, and sometimes they react as if it were a major disaster. But whether it's big or it's small, we can learn to deal with that. The A, I feel like, stands for the attitude of gratitude. Now, how do we get this attitude of gratitude? Well, my dad was a farmer and a part-time preacher and did whatever he could to keep us 5 children something to eat on the table. So one time when he was out of work and there was no crops that were doing well, and he'd had a paint store that burned and he didn't have insurance, and he continued over the years to pay off his suppliers because he thought that's what he should do. But he took a ride over into Oklahoma and worked for one of his brothers over there. Then as he was coming home to Arkansas to see his family, well, it was during the Second World War, and the train was filled with soldiers. As we're seeing more and more during this period of time, we're seeing people in their uniforms, all different kinds of uniforms, and we see it on television all the time. Well, he was coming back on the train with all of the troops. The only thing, at that time, there was no air conditioning on the train. And they were just stuffed in there like sardines trying to get the troops across the United States, because a lot of times they sent them that way from one base to the other, one fort to the other. And so we lived in a little tiny town, Bay, Arkansas, that was, it took, you know, the hoot owls, we call those our watchdogs. It was so far back in the sticks that my dad had to wear hip boots to get us to the school bus. But when he was coming back, a couple of interesting things happened. One was that a little baby was crying on the train, and perhaps you've heard this story since it happened back in the Second World War, and a man was holding the baby and could not get the baby to quit crying. And one of the big old burly Texans everybody was kind of watching the baby and the father and getting irritated. And they were already irritated because it was hot and sweaty. And so this man went back over there to the man that was holding the baby and said, "Can't you keep that kid quiet?" Big old tears started running down his cheeks, and he said, the Texan said, "Why don't you give it to its mother?" And the father said, "Sir, I would love to give it to its mother, but she's in a casket in the train ahead of us, and we're going home to bury her." And that big old burly Texan dropped to his knees, and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Could I please help you?" And he took that tiny little baby up in his big hands. His hands were bigger than the baby almost, and he put that baby on his shoulder, and he walked up and down that train aisle and got the little child finally settled down. And some of the people that were there, my dad said that he kept thinking about going to offer, but he didn't do it. He just, sometimes you don't do the thought that's in your mind. A lovely thought is in our mind. We fail to set it free. From lack of exercise, it dies and makes it tomb in me sometimes when we have a good idea. So he was able to get that baby quiet, and that father had such an attitude of gratitude of the way that the whole train just seemed to come to his rescue. But wasn't it sad that first of all they had to have this man to hurt the young father even more by the harsh words that he said? Wouldn't it be great if we could say the words we are thinking many times and the thoughts that go through our mind and go on and do that good deed that we thought about? I've thought so much lately about the Good Samaritan. Don't you wonder who our Good Samaritan, who the Good Samaritan is today, and how we're supposed to help? We say so many times, especially for women, we're told, don't stop and pick up hitchhikers, don't do this, don't help. We're almost afraid to help people, and so we wonder how we're going to be a Good Samaritan. A couple of days ago, you may have read in the paper or saw that a girl's car caught on fire at the post office here in Huntsville. And I had been thinking for a couple of days about this attitude of gratitude and how that we need to be the Good Samaritan, and how do we become that Good Samaritan and show this attitude of gratitude to our Father for the good things He's given us, all these blessings that He's given us. And every day I've been working on, and boy, I got a long ways to go. Don't believe me, I don't have it there yet. But how could today, God bring someone in my path today that I could pay back some of the blessings you've given me of good eyes, good ears, a wonderful country to live in, all of the blessings that we have, marvelous television station here at Channel 48. We need to pour out our blessings to Channel 58 right now, just so that Victory Network can really be blessed. Well, anyway, as the car back at the post office was catching on fire and starting to blaze, it was before the post office opened, and the mother had left her little baby, about a year old or so, in the car, and she saw when she parked her car that it was starting to smoke, and so she ran back and got her little baby. And lots of times we do this. This just happens. It's not something unusual that people run into the post office and leave their child in the seat in the car. Anyway, she got the baby. Well, the car continued to blaze. She ran into the post office and she said, "Please, could I use a telephone?" And the person that was doing the sweeping said, "You can't go inside and use our phone because we haven't opened yet. Go down there and use it." She said, "I didn't bring my purse. I don't have a quarter." And so he kind of appeared to be, reluctant. And I'm only seeing the scurrying around, and it seemed like sometimes I'm slow to catch on what's happening. Finally, I looked out and saw the car, and that the the gasoline or whatever was causing it, the fire was just running across the ground and back to the back tire, which of course would be close to the tank. And finally, so many people were seeing that, because a lot of people come to their post office, the main post office, to pick up their mail. And so then we're just starting to bang on the doors. Please let us in to call. Please call the fire department. Well, they did call, and by the time she got a quarter and back over to the payphone and called, well, they had gotten in touch with the fire department. It seemed like it took it forever to get there. You know how a minute seems a long time when waiting for help. But I thought I had to be to an appointment at 10 o'clock, and it's like 8:15 to 8:30. And so I went over and told her, I'd take you home. Of all those 30, 40 people milling around, no one else offered to take her home. And I probably wouldn't have either if I hadn't been so concerned lately about how can I be the Good Samaritan? What is the Good Samaritan? Who is my neighbor? How can I show other people my attitude of gratitude? And so I said, could I take you home, and where do you live? And so the fire truck came and was able to put the fire out. But it took them quite a long time. Her car was totally just, she didn't get anything out of it. After the foam settled down and she could wipe it off, she was able to get some pictures out that she had on the back seat. But I had the great privilege and blessing of taking her home, and we started talking about the thing to be thankful for. Her husband was out of town, and we were afraid he would panic. So when we got to her house, we stopped in front of the house and we just prayed that he wouldn't panic, and thankful that she got her little boy out of the car, the little baby. And so many things we can be thankful for. If we look for, sure, it's terrible. It would look like a new car. It was a pretty car. And yet she had a truck that was her husband was at home, so she could still get around. And so there were things to be thankful for, and big tears ran down her eyes. But I just thought what a blessing it was. And I went away from that experience so energized, thinking, I know how that Good Samaritan felt. When you have an attitude of gratitude for the blessings that have been poured on us, then we try to share them, drop that little pebble in the stream that permeates the whole area of all the places we touch. They're not blessed nearly as much as we are. She will never have been blessed as much as I was in doing that. Well, I just think that we have to work on having an attitude of gratitude. I can't end the story about my dad without saying one thing. He was a humorous guy. He thought funny. And as I said, we lived out in the middle of nowhere, little 500 plus cats and dogs, but we lived 3.5 miles out in the country from there. So everybody was complaining as they trucked along through the countryside, and they got to where we lived, or 3.5 miles from where we lived, but the closest place where the train stopped. And so my dad said, well, I tell you what, it is just so hot in here, and this train is going so slow, I think I'll just get off and walk. So the train, he pulled on the little thing, and the train stopped and let him off. Of course, that's where his ticket took him to. And it looked to these people like he had gotten off in the middle of nowhere to, of course, he was going to walk 3.5 miles out to his home. But he said as far as he could see that train, they just had their eyes pressed against the windows looking at him, and they were just awestruck at it. He had a little fun, but it gave a little fun time after they realized that they finally had to figure it out. You know, they did, to bring a little laughter and fun into it. We have to do that, you know. There are so many things that the Bible talks to us about, the blessings that we have, and we think, well, you know yourself that He pours out His blessings on us, especially in Malachi it talks about when we tithe, He's going to pour out. In Luke it talks about the blessings that He pours out to us when we give to other people. Of course that means money. Tithing is money. But tithing is time also. Tithing is what we already have. Tithing is the way, I even think of our attitude when we get up in the morning and things are not so terrific in our own life. But if we can put a smile on our face, you know, I'd rather see a fake smile than a genuine grouch any day? I think it would be perfectly all right to put a smile on your face because, hey, this is the day the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And Luke 18:27 says, the things that are impossible with man are possible with God. There's always a way that we can be thankful and have those blessings, because even if we can't see anything in it or figure out a way it can be done, that we can have God's blessings, what's impossible to us is possible with God. And I know that even though the plane lost my luggage and I had to go to Atlanta without any makeup, and for a person with lots of freckles, that is not too fun. But I went on and we just had a lot of fun. I think people had more fun seeing me with my face hanging out with all the freckles than anything that I could have done to entertain them. Let's see. There's another thing in Luke that I think when the S of ASK, of course, is to seek. But what is it also? I think it's to be sensitive to others. And that's what I have been learning lately, is how to be sensitive to others. And you know, I think that when God was talking, and it's Luke 18:41, Jesus was talking to the blind man. Now you know that Jesus knew everything. And you know that he knew when he was looking at this person that he was blind. But what did he say? He looked at him. Jesus looked at the blind man and he said, what would it be that I shall do for you? Let me read it right out of here, Luke 18:41. What wilt thou that I shall do unto thee? Now you know he knew he was blind. You know he knew that's what he wanted. But yet he asked the question. I think when it says ask, seek, and knock, that we are to ask, we are to seek, we are to knock. We actually can be sensitive to others in our seeking, and to maybe say, even though we look at someone and say, okay, do you need a ride home? Do you have enough money for groceries? Whatever it is we may think is very obvious, it could be that we could still ask them, what can I do with you? And you know that story about the lady in the same chapter when she went to the judge and kept asking him for something, and the judge said, he says, yet this widow troubleth me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. Hear what the unjust judge saith. Now here he is, a guy that's unjust. He didn't even, it says, and shall not God avenge his own elect who cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them? See, the unjust judge, he didn't necessarily believe in God. He couldn't care less about the woman. But because she kept asking, she kept seeking, she kept knocking, he said, okay, I'll do it. We're going to do what you want me to do. And I think that's the way it is with God. I know that there's, we got to have faith a grain of mustard seed, and we ask people, we ask for something, and some people say, well, it's not faith if you keep asking. But also, God says, or Jesus is speaking right here in Luke 18:7, and it says, shall not God avenge his own elect who cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them? I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. I mean, hey, I'm going to do it. And I think that sometimes we just have to keep on keeping on and say, God, I'm not going to turn loose until you show me what you want me to do with my life. Having done all to stand, yes, we have to stand, and we have to have peace about it. My peace I give to you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. We have all of those. Malachi 3:10, where it talks about him pouring out a blessing. And then the 1 Corinthians 10:16, the cup of blessings which he blesses us with. And the cup of blessings, to me, it's the cup that is never empty. The cup is never empty of the blessings that God pours out. Isn't that exciting? I love it, love it, love it. And then you know that out of our mouth, we decide, actually, whether blessings or cursings are going to come into us. James 3:10 says that out of our mouth proceed blessings or cursing. Are we making a blessing or a cursing on our life? When we ask God, And he says, hey, don't turn loose until you get your answer. You keep on keeping on. Being persistent, the one thing in all God, we were born for His good pleasure, yes. But also, He says for us to enjoy our day and for us to have His blessings, the blessings of Abraham are poured out on us. We are the spiritual seed of Abraham. I have a friend that just got back, two friends in fact, from Israel. We're going to do a program about what they learned, and I have the Jerusalem Post, and it tells us some of the things that's happening over there in what I call the insane Sodom of Gomorrah. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. I think we have insane Sodom instead of Saddam Hussein. He's an insane Sodom and Gomorrah. And the things that are happening over there, and this person said that he felt that there would be a major battle within the next 2 weeks. I'm talking about major war. Well, we are to stay in peace with whatever the newspaper is saying, whatever we see on television, and we belong to Jesus Christ. And He tells us more than 365 days, times in the Bible, fear not, fret not, 366 to be exact. And so remember, it comes between our head. Don't allow someone to tell you something that takes away your blessings, that takes away your feeling of depending upon God, that you are in the palm of His hand. And I was talking to a person that I've been taking a computer class over in Gunnersville. I was talking to this person, and I was telling them a little bit about Emily. Most of you know that she was my co-host here for a couple of years on Victory Network, and car hit her, and she went on to be with Jesus. And so I was telling her about Emily, and told her that Lord had shown me to write a book. And by the way, if you would like to have one of the books, any donation to Victory Network, you will be sent a book. It really needs to be over $5 since it cost me $4 to have them printed. But whatever you send, we'll send you a book if you'd like to have one. It's just called Emily. I was talking to her, and she said she started crying. And this, even though I've been in class with her for a while, I did not I thought, well, did she know Emily, or have I couldn't understand why she was crying. Come to find out, her son had committed suicide in August of this year, and she said that she said she didn't really believe he had done it because he was so close to the Lord, and she just couldn't believe he'd done it. But she doesn't have the money, and she is a widow. She doesn't have the money to find out what happened in the situation, and he was not near her at that time. He was in another place. But she can't believe that with the brilliance that he had, that he did it. But she was in such great pain, and she didn't know the Lord Jesus Christ maybe like you and I do, or that you and I want to. When I spoke to the prison group a couple weeks ago, there was about 50 in the class, and it was a SATP, stands for Substance Abuse Training Program, and every one of the 50 people gave their life to the Lord. Can you imagine that? I was just standing there watching what God was doing. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, that God is doing such incredible things. You know, He said He'd pour out His blessings on our sons and daughters. It's happening now. And another person I was talking to, that when I was talking to her husband, who had brought people to the Lord, brought their whole family who lived in Germany to the Lord. They lived over here in the United States. She's from Texas, but she has moved to the Tennessee Valley area. And she said that her husband, from all apparent reasons, had evidently, as far as they know, tried to commit suicide. He died from the effort. He was over in his garage. Now, he was able to walk through the house, and whether it happened by accident with the garage door down and couldn't get it up or whatever, they're not sure about that. But he did live some time, and she was in great pain. There are a lot of people in pain for different things. But you know, if we will look at what's happening in the world, in our world, and remembering that it's between here and here, how we respond and react to our own pain, whether it's, as I said, the simple thing of you having a run in your hose when you get to work. I mean, some people get all bent out of shape, or you being late getting to work because they're working on the Memorial Parkway or whatever it is. But if we just remember to count our own blessings. Can you see this television? You already have the blessings that man asked Jesus when Jesus said, what would you that you would have that I shall do for you? Shall. I wanted to make sure that it's not should, it's shall, because I looked it up again in Luke, and it really does say that. And in Revelation 5:12, he talks about us being worthy to receive his blessings. So if we just remember that it's ask, seek, and knock. Yes, ask for the things we need. Seek him and knock. But it's more than that. It's this attitude of gratitude, this being sensitive to other people's needs, and the K, knowing ourselves and knowing God. More than anything is knowing our God. Because when we know the Lord Jesus Christ and what he's done in pouring out the blessings to us individually and as a family and as a country and as a world, then by sending his only begotten Son to us, that he died, he appropriated my horrible sins on the cross so that I might have that opportunity, that he would, through his grace, make up the difference between this horrible, sinful person I am to what I should be, the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. And so with that, knowing God, it will help us to know ourselves. I love you so much. If there's any way that I can help you, or anyone that you know of, a person in pain, please let me do that. And if you would like one of the books and a donation to Victory Network, you get it. Call 461-8148. I love you. Have a terrific, wonderful, blessed day. God love you too.
And give him praise, and give him praise. Come into his presence with thanksgiving in your heart. Your voice is raised, your voice is raised. Give glory and honor and power unto him, Jesus, the name above all names. Come into his presence with thanksgiving in your heart and give him praise. Praise. Come into his presence with thanksgiving in your heart. Your voice is raised. Your voice is raised. Glory and honor and power unto him, Jesus, the name above all names. Come on, let's praise him. We want to praise you, Lord.